Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to be doing a little bit different of a live stream. I will look at some charts. We'll certainly get to some names that you guys want to look at. But as the title of this stream suggests, this will be a deep dive stream, meaning I'm going to spend a lot of time on the Bitcoin charts. I'm going to be going through the analysis using different time frames, using different indicators, different things that I look at, primarily to show you guys just some thought processes, some different potential prices to be watching here near term. And so if you don't like charts and you don't like indicators and technical analysis, you're probably not going to enjoy the first segment of this. But I think most of you guys are here because you do like the charts. And so appreciate you guys joining. Remember to hit that like button. And so, of course, I don't have to say this. You guys know this, but I have to say this. None of this is financial advice. This is not a suggestion to buy or sell or do anything. It's educational purposes only. You guys know where I am. I do trade. I do invest. I trade regularly, daily. And so I'm just going to share some thoughts about what I am looking at, how I approach things. But at the end of the day, you guys got to make your own decisions. Don't take anything I say or anybody else or people on Twitter or on YouTube or anything as strict investment advice. So speaking of YouTube, oh man, I was watching one of my recent videos. I was sharing it with somebody and I was so annoyed by the ads at the beginning of the videos. And my YouTube monetization or whatever has just recently been, it was like a few weeks ago they turned it on. And so you guys know I haven't had ads on my channel since I started. And then they turned it on, I left it on, and I just started watching a few videos. I was like, wow, this is annoying as heck. And so I took them off. So you guys will never see ads again on my stupid those stinking ads. I just have very little patience. I'm the Netflix generation, you know, like when I try to watch something on like regular television stations, like I can't, because it's like every 10 minutes there's a commercial and I can't stand it. So I'm used to the no ad. We're the no ad generation, right? So we gotta binge and don't interrupt my segment. So anyway, that's my rant for the day. So a couple of things to note. When you're doing technical analysis, there are not two things, but yeah, I guess there are two things that are the most important things to establish from the beginning. And so keep that in mind as we go through this segment here today. For those of you that have taken my course on the technical analysis fundamentals, there are two important things. One is, what is the trend, right? And it's a cliche, but it bears a lot of weight. And as traders, I'm looking for what the trend is, because if you can identify a trend early on and ride it as much as possible, that's when you're going to be the most profitable, right? And there's only three trends, right? There's the downtrend, there's an uptrend, and then there's sideways trends, right? Basically periods of consolidation, periods of transition. And at the end of the day, that's it. There's three trends. And so your step one is always identify what's the most recent trend. And then, of course, the hard part is always knowing, is it a trend change or is it just a retracement, right? Like right here, these are retracements, right? This retracements within the broader trend. And so that's always the challenge, right? Is it a trend change or is it just a retracement? And there's different ways to do that. And of course, I will often take some positions when I think it is a trend change with stops in places always. And so that's rule number one, kind of step one in technical analysis. And then step two is identifying where the most recent support and resistance levels land, right? So what are those pivot points? What are those walls and floors in the price point? And they don't have to be horizontal all the time. Sometimes resistance and support is a trend line. So just keep that in mind. All right. So what's my time frame at the end here? Let's see. I'm gonna try to keep this to about an hour, with the first half spent on maybe not the first half. I'll try to move quickly, but the first half step spent on the Bitcoin deep dive. So, all right, let's get to it. So looking at the chart here, this is Coinbase daily chart. And so the main thing that I've been watching here is the fact that we have finally broken the downtrend that we were here in May. You can see we broke above it a couple of days. We tested it down to the downside here and are starting to move higher. So this channel support has held so far. So that's the good news. Clearly, there is a change in trend here. So the bad news is this most recent action is potentially forming a bear flag pattern. So you've got this broader pattern here, and then you've got a rise. And so this is a potential pattern that I'm watching here. It's within this channel here. And if you zoom in on the 4-hour chart, you can see we've just been bouncing back and forth between this channel here. And so I'm going to be focusing on the upper end of this channel as it continues to rise. We're going to keep an eye on volume here. If it breaks out above the channel on strong volume, that's a positive sign. But for now, this looks like a bear flag to me, and it's the opposite of a bull flag where you have a big run and then you have this steady kind of pullback, constructive pullback, and then a breakout to the higher. So unfortunately, that's keeping me cautious in the intermediate term. In the near term, I'm still looking for more upside. But then what happens, when we bounce into resistance? Are we going to see this bear flag continue and another leg to the downside? So that's kind of the bad news, the intermediate news that I'm watching here on the price action. So looking at that, so this channel here that we've been looking at, let me take that off. I was looking for a reversal pattern not a few days ago, but early last week or whatever, and that's when we saw this inverted head and shoulders. I'm on the 12-hour chart just because this shows it very well. And on this, the neckline was pretty clear. It was right there. The way you look at these is these inverted head and shoulder patterns. You can do a technical projection. These are just rules of thumb. You always have to line them up with some sort of resistance or something. But on a projection to the upside, if it broke out, you were looking at around 8K. Now, that does line up with a pretty decent resistance zone, which is this most recent pivot low. 8K is a round number. It's a psychological number. And so, okay, that's the first target is 8K. Now, we broke out. We had this throwback, slightly undercut that breakout point. Here we are going higher. Now, on to the near-term action. Keep in mind, we're still within this broader rising channel, okay? So the first target is going to be this 8K floor that gave way. And here we are near-term, putting a little bit of resistance zone here above that $7,700 mark. Now, on the 4-hour chart, within this channel, there's been several patterns that have played out. Last week, we saw this falling wedge pattern or rising wedge pattern, excuse me, that did give way. But the projection on the downside here was around 7,200. It didn't get that far. It made a higher low, which has created that lower trend line support that I'm watching now. And so that's the key level to be watching here. But then on this 4-hour chart, this most recent action we saw the last few days and yesterday is a potential for a cup and handle pattern that's forming. Now, this makes sense here. Cup and handle is a continuation pattern. So we've had this little bit of a rise. Now, keep in mind, we're talking relatively small numbers here. I mean, this run up has been, 9-10%. In the crypto world, that's not a lot, right? We've seen much bigger moves. So keep in mind, this is relatively small. And so this cup depth is only about 5% deep. So we're seeing this little cup and handle form. To remain valid, this handle, the pullback can't go any more than around that $7,600 mark. If it starts to fall deeper than that, that's going to be too deep of a handle. It'll invalidate that pattern. And then the upside, the early signal, is going to basically be a break of that handle trend line that's been forming here. So if it starts to clear above that, and then of course the official breakout is getting above like 77.50 or so, and that's going to be the upside move on the cup and handle. Now, these you can do a technical projection as well. Take the depth of the cup, project it from the breakout of the handle, and look at where that lines up. Just shy of 8,100, still within the same resistance zone. And so there's two targets there that are pointing to the same general area in and around that 8,100, 8,000 or so. So I'm going to highlight that little box there, just kind of to keep an eye on that as we do some more analysis here. So that's near-term action. let's do another way of looking at this. If we did just a straight Fibonacci retracement from this entire May move on the daily chart and looking at the bounce, you can say, okay, let's take the top of the May here around that just shy of 10K mark, 99. What do we get to, like 99.60 or something? And then you go down to the bottom. The first key fib level, the 382, is at 81.68. And so just above that 8K mark, shy of the $8,200 mark. So same thing within this same bounce here. So keep an eye on that, right? There's just multiple levels of resistance, targets, projections, a lot of things just starting to line up in this, 8K to $8,200 zone. And so looking at that, now for those of you that are trading the Ichimoku system, right, the cloud, there's a couple of things that I'm watching here. Obviously, the first thing is, are we in a bigger downtrend or an uptrend? And when prices are above the cloud, that's a bullish trend. When prices are below the cloud, that's bearish trend. In the cloud is a little bit of transition period, potential support resistance zones. So what's happening now is on the 4-hour chart, we are bouncing into the cloud. We pulled back. Look at where we found support at the Kijun-sen line. We did have a bullish TK cross back here on June 2nd, and that was the first attempt to break into the cloud. We rejected, we came back out, but we did find support at the Kijun-sen line, which is positive. Then we broke back into the cloud yesterday. We had that quick shakeout. Look at where it held support, right at the bottom of the cloud, and here we are moving higher. Now, the Ichi traders will be doing a edge-to-edge trade on this, meaning once it's in the cloud, the trade is expected to move to the other end of the cloud. Now, if you look at this, the top of the cloud here, look at where the price is, 79.66. So again, going into that 8K level. So another point of potential resistance there going into 8K. That makes sense. That lines up here with this level here. So just so many different things that are pointing to the same general zone leads me to believe that we're likely going to see some more upside here in the near term. So I am bullish in the very near term, right? Meaning on the 4-hour chart, meaning on the next couple of days. But as we begin to approach, if this is assuming prices hold up and we don't break down from here, of course, but as we begin to approach that resistance zone, it will also line up with the top end of this channel that we've been in. And so that's going to be the first real big test, right? What happens going into that box there between, let's call it upper 7900s to sub 82, right? Just kind of that little box in and around there is really going to be the target that I'm going to be looking at. I'm personally going to get defensive. I do have some trades open right now. I've been trading a few alts, and so I'll definitely be looking at some of those names here. But this is kind of the first real big test, and if it fails there and begins to move south and undercuts this rising trend line, which will be at that point closer to around 7,700, maybe 7,650 or so. Going back to the daily chart, if we do see that pattern play out and then we break down, that's going to be a break of a bear flag. And at that point, then I'd be looking for a pullback. And the level that pulls back to is anyone's guess from here, right? I mean, does it retest these lows? Does it retest the most recent low at 7K? I mean, there's just so many different scenarios at that point. So looking at the weekly chart, don't need to rehash this too much because everyone's been talking about this, and this has become very common knowledge. But there's two things that I'm looking at here. Of course, there's the big symmetrical triangle that's forming, and you can see the little bull flag within that, right? It takes us to a green week. And when I did my video a few days ago on my June 6th prediction, remember everything on the 6th turned the corner, and that was like a key date. Nothing really happened yesterday, but my prediction in that video was we were going to be higher before the end of the week than we closed last week. And so we got to get over 77, 12 or 30 or whatever, close above that. I still think we're going to see 7,800 this week. And so that'll play out. But then at that point, do we bounce? And then do we pull back and test this lower trend line around 7,400, 7,300? That's going to really be the test, right? Do we pull back and make a double bottom, a higher low? Or do we break support and then start testing these most recent lows? And so because everybody is watching this pattern, and it's pretty mixed out there. I mean, at the end of the day, the consensus is, hey, this thing's going to go to 9K in June, and then it's going to pull back and then break out, or and so my guess is I don't think we're going to see June touch the upper end of this trend line. In fact, I think we'll probably meander around here before we get a little bit more decisive. One thing I am watching out for is because everybody is watching this pattern play out, it would not be surprising to see a bear trap happen here, meaning we do a big fake out and then move higher, right? The market always does what people least expect, and traps people. That's just the nature of financial markets. So it would not surprise me to see like maybe a pullback, and then we bear break, everybody panics, goes short, whatever, and then we rally hard, right? So that would be ideal in my opinion, because this little washout here would just really take out a lot of positions, would probably see a big pile on of the shorts, and then the shorts would probably get run up. So that's what I'm looking at. So longer term, meaning months out, second half of 2018, post July, I am still very much bullish. I don't expect the 2014 similarity scenario to play out like a lot of people do, where they're saying, hey, this is like 2014, and we're going to be in this long protracted bear market that's going to ultimately fail this pattern, and we're going to go lower. In that scenario, people are looking for 5K as kind of the target, the downside target, if we break below this pattern. So that's the bearish scenario. Everyone's waiting for that. I'm not in that camp. I'm almost thinking you guys are going to get sucked in if you see that break, and then it's going to take off. So, but hey, this is technical analysis, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We take our signals one day at a time, and most of my trading is not done on the weekly basis anyway. It's done on the 4-hour and the 1-hour charts. I use the daily charts to kind of gauge my signals and to get a overall trend direction. But at the end of the day, my trading is a lot shorter term. And so there's a big difference between trading and technical analysis. There's a lot of it. I mean, at the end of the day, you need technical analysis if you're trading. I mean, it'd be impossible to trade without charts, but technical analysis is the easy part. And it's very easy for people to learn the charts, to learn some basic patterns, to learn some basic trend signals, moving averages, and all that fun stuff. And so suddenly everyone's like, oh, I'm an analyst and I know how to read the chart and I can project. But you put some real money, some skin in the game, trading becomes much more difficult. You have cognitive biases, cognitive dissidence that is going to cloud your judgment, because if you're looking for the bullish case, you're going to miss the bearish signals and vice versa. And so I always tell people trading, technical analysis is easy. Trading is difficult, right? Position management, stop losses, all of that stuff, your system, your buy signals, your sell signals. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game. And so it's always interesting when people are just analysts and don't actually make a living trading, or don't actually do any, or are not even successful traders. Even if they're not making a living, are they good at it? So whole nother ball game. So that's it for Bitcoin. That's kind of the broader deep dive. I covered that in about 20 minutes. So looking pretty good here. I'm not going to go into the shorter term time frames. We're not going to really care about the hourlies or anything like that. At the end of the day, these 1-hour charts have been just very volatile, very shaky. But just keep in mind, most of these moves, I mean, you're talking 3%, you're talking 2%, and I get that. That's kind of a lot, but in the big scheme of things, this little section that we've been in has been relatively tight. I mean, just look at historically Bitcoin. If you look at the price spread on historical price action here, I mean, this bar here is 12%. This bar here was 20%, right? This bar here was 13%. These are daily candles. And so historically, these, 7, 5, 7, 10% moves in a day is not unusual. And relative to that, the price action we're seeing here is almost a little bit smaller than we're used to. So you can see these rises and peaks are starting to get really tight. And that's just because this market's becoming very undetermined. The bulls and bears are battling it out, and it's coming to a head here pretty soon in the next couple of weeks or so. But yeah, it's just a big consolidation at the end of the day. All right, let's drink some water there. So let me look at my notes here, make sure I covered what I was looking at. Oh, let's do a couple more things. So when you're doing technical analysis, there's a couple other things you can look at. You can look at moving averages. You can look at RSI, MACDs, there's different oscillators. Going back to the daily chart, the RSI is still sub 50. A lot of traders look at above and below 50 as kind of the zero line, similar to what the MACD looks like. And so I use it a little bit differently. I have kind of confirmed bull and bear zones. That's the 60-40 level. But above 50 is ideal. Usually that's where you want if you're going to be in kind of the bull mode. And you can see on the daily chart, we're still sub 50 on the RSI. The MACD did cross bullish. That was kind of expected. We were signaling across, and I thought if we went sideways for a little bit longer, slightly up, we would see that. We've seen that, so that's positive. Still below the zero line, however, and so it's kind of like the Ichimoku cloud stuff, right? When you get a TK cross, you have to always think, how is that relative to the cloud? If you get a bullish cross above the cloud, that's very positive. If you get a bullish cross below the cloud, that's not necessarily confirmed bull. Maybe it means close out your shorts. Same thing with the MACD. When you get a bullish MACD cross that's below the zero line, not necessarily a confirmed bull, but maybe that means, hey, close out the shorts, and vice versa. If you get a bearish MACD when it's below the zero line, that's a stronger sell signal. So these indicators are always relative to where they lie. They're never just absolute binary. So just keep that in mind. Let me see what else. One more thing. My bull momentum index on the daily chart, it is crossing into the bullish zone. It is at 75 right now, so it's right there. Could go higher, so that's positive. On the 12-hour, we are certainly in the bull zone. On the 4-hour, living in the bull zone. So that's why in the short term, in the intermediate term, I'm looking for some more upside. But or excuse me, in the very short term, I'm looking for upside. In the more intermediate term, meaning the next few days, week or so, I'm actually not as bullish as others, right? A lot of folks are kind of expecting a retest of this upper trend line. And if we get it, great. I'll be there with you guys. But I'm getting a little cautious here until this bull flag pattern plays out. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with the BTC. Let's see here. Let me catch up with the comments. Thank you guys for being here. Happy to have you all. When Moon? I'm going to say after August. Let's see here. So, yeah, so spoiler alert. What's my summary, right? Is it going up or is it going down? I just gave you guys a lot of reasons why it's very indeterminate. It could go either way. And it's been, I mean, think about it. The trading here has been relatively small. So how am I trading this market? I'm not really trading Bitcoin, to be honest with you. There hasn't been a whole lot. Mostly I've been trading the alts using Bitcoin as my signal when it's trending higher. But these moves have not really been that exciting for me. Like, 5% or 4.5% in, 4 or 5 days. I'm trading the alts at that point. Let me see. Giant inverse cup and handle on the daily. Yeah, there's absolutely a case to be made for that. And that lines up well with the inverted or with the bear flag too, right? So you got this giant inverted cup and handle. Absolutely. It's a bearish signal, by the way. You even dumped BNB for ontology. I've gotten both. So let's see here. Look at gold. Yeah, I've been watching gold. Actually, silver's the chart that I'm playing more right now. The fundamentals are completely different to 2014. I completely agree with you. That's why it's kind of it's not a fair comparison. I mean, we are totally different markets. Now, the psychology of markets remains the same. The patterns repeat, but I agree. Trading these days is exhausting. We need a big run for reward, keeping the market going. Yeah, I agree. It's been tough trading for especially the last few weeks. It's kind of a lot of work for a little gain type of thing. What's the best short-term trade? Like I said, I've been doing more alts. And most of the alts aren't even that bullish, to be honest with you. There's only a handful of names that are really holding up well. So, all right. I think I've caught up with most of the most of these comments. So, all right, let's get to some of the other charts here. Some of the names that I've been watching and I've been talking about here for a while. Binance Coin, right? It's breaking out to all-time high. Blue Sky breakouts. RSI is a little bit high, but you know how that goes when you're in new high territory. Loses a little bit of relevance. And so right now, is it extended? Yeah, a little bit on the shorter term time frames. If you look at the 4-hour chart, we did have a little bit of a pause, so that was healthy, holding that consolidation. Now I want to see some confirmation by breaking out above this most recent high. There was a lot of volume on this reversal near the top, so keeping an eye on that. Right there, you can see that there was some volume associated with that bar. We're consolidating here, but we are in new high territory. Now, it would not surprise me to see maybe one of these type of things play out where it pulls back again, makes a higher low, and builds either like an ascending triangle pattern or a little bit of a bull pennant type of pattern. So that would be ideal. But as long as it holds this resistance, or excuse me, this support, I'm going to go ahead and stay with it for now. And the one caveat to all of these, unfortunately, is Bitcoin, right? What does Bitcoin do? You guys know I just said I think it's going to go higher near term. But of course, if it decides to sell off, it's going to really spill over into the alts, and that's just the nature of it. That's why I've been trading a little bit more of the USDT pairs, just because I can get in and out without worrying about BTC. Well, I mean, you still worry about it, but you can go straight back to cash if you need to, as opposed to having to cycle into BTC and then out. But that's not always possible, right? Not everything trades a USDT pair like Ontology or ZIL or VeChain. So looking versus the dollar here, we are right at the $17 mark here, testing a little bit of resistance. If we can break out above that on the BNB USD pair, you know, that's this little bit of a wall here. Let me highlight that for you guys. That was this prior closing support that finally gave way. And so we're testing that. I expect it to go higher personally. And then at that point, you know, the next real big target is going to be going into the $20, $22 mark. And so from here on up, that's still another 20+%. But the one thing that I'm making note of is it does feel a little bit extended. So just keep an eye on that. RSI on the daily still has room to go, though, right? It's only at 69. Let's call it 70. So if it wants to continue higher, this still has room to go before it's considered overbought. You can see historically, I mean, this thing, when it really gets going, RSI gets up there in the 80s. So all around, still looking pretty good. Ontology, seen a little bit of a breakdown here, but it's just holding support, trying to test this moving average in the shorter term time frame. On the daily chart, 4-hour is rolling over a little bit. This is kind of the must hold level. It was the just below this prior breakout. So if it continues lower, that's not going to be good. In the shorter term time frames, 1 hour still has a little room to go if it wants to get oversold. There was higher volume on this most recent break. So unfortunately, that's not looking too good. Not writing it off completely, but because the daily chart still looks very strong, right? And the daily, it's just a little bit of a normal pullback, but near term, it is a little bit of a reversal bar, especially if the daily finishes down here near the lows. That'll be an engulfing candle there. ZIL was another name I was watching here. Still looking pretty good on this daily, kind of ebbing and flowing, putting in a little bit of a pullback right now, watching this trend line for a potential break higher. And so still looking decent on that 4-hour chart. Here's the daily. You can see it's just kind of rounding the corner, marching steadily. Nothing too crazy, but still looking pretty good there. I'd like to see a little bit more acceleration to the upside. But the volume patterns here have been very good. Just a lot of accumulation here near the lows, very little selling even on these pullbacks. It's been relatively contained sell volume. So for now, still looks pretty good. Watch this trend line. If we break here, that might signal the next leg up. And like I said before, the one caveat is always, hey, what does Bitcoin do? If Bitcoin decides to roll over quickly here, that's going to really spill over into all of these names. And we've seen that before. What was the other one I was going to cover? Oh, VeChain. Not that one. I do that every time. I need to just use my watch list. So I'm going to the, sorry. VeChain versus BNB is underperforming because BNB is so strong. There it is. VeChain BTC. It's been looking pretty good here. You can see the last 2 weeks or so has been this nice little rise that's been going steadily here and pausing right now the last day or so, just kind of sitting tight. I want to see this thing start moving higher now, though. Otherwise, if it continues to just drift lower, it'll start to form a little bit of a rounded top. Don't usually like to see that. So looking for a little bit of a breakout, some follow through the upside here. But all in all, this is looking really healthy, just kind of stair-stepping its way higher, looking pretty good. So now I want to see some volume come back in and move this thing further to the next level. Let me go through some of the USD pairs just because I've been looking at a lot of those there. So Ripple is one of the stronger ones right now. So if you look at the Ripple dollar pair, I mean, this one has just been on a steady climb. Most other names don't have as strong as a rising trend, but we are building a little bit of an ascending triangle here. So looking for a little bit of a breakout potentially on Ripple USD. If BTC can break out, you might see this one follow suit there. So Ripple's looking pretty good. It's probably the stronger of the USD pairs right now. Bitcoin Cash also relatively strong here. Let me go to that on, no, where is it? I don't want to do it on GDEX. Oh, I know I can't find it. Binance has it listed as BCC. So this one's still holding up relatively well, had this pullback. Also a little bit of an ascending triangle forming on the Bitcoin Cash chart here. So from a USD pair, if it starts to move higher above that 1170, then you're probably going to be looking at a 1200 retest relatively quickly, and then above that's a pretty good breakout. So that 1200 is right at this resistance right here, this prior floor, and or excuse me, the 1170s right there. So that's also a pretty good breakout zone if we can get above that. So right now, that's probably the strongest names other than Binance, of course. Go into some of the other ones you guys are asking about. Cardano, the USD pair on Cardano, not quite as strong. You can see there's still this relative downtrend. It's starting to roll over. If it breaks below this most recent low, that's going to be pretty negative. And right now, it doesn't look very strong. It looks to me like it wants to go lower. So we need to break above that that downtrend that it's been in here recently. Ethereum, looking at the ETH. Let me go here to the ETH dollar on Bitstamp. This one's just sitting real tight, so looking pretty good. But just kind of following suit with Bitcoin. This one, very symmetrical, could go either way at this point. So just keep an eye on that. You can see these higher lows and lower highs and just getting really tight here. We'll see this thing break out one way or the other in the coming, probably the next day or two. So just keep an eye on that guy. Looking at the daily chart, still the same thing, right? Just very flat and very tight. Litecoin. At Litecoin, same thing, not too bad here. Did have this shakeout, recovered quickly, but at the end of the day, the level to be watching on Litecoin is, you know, this level above the 122, maybe going into 123. If it can start to close above that, that'll be a nice break above this resistance on the most recent 4-hour charts. On the daily, not as strong as some of the others like Ripple and obviously Binance, not as strong as those. So just kind of sitting flat. Bitcoin actually looks stronger than Litecoin here, so that I'd lean in favor of that one until this one breaks out. What was the other one? NEO and EOS. So looking at NEO, very similar to kind of the Cardano chart here. You can see there's just this lower trend, but it's sitting tight here. There's just so many of these charts that are just they're not strong, but they're just kind of very undetermined right now, and they're just waiting to see what the next price move is. And they're getting very tight. So many of these are really tightening up here. So if NEO can get back above 54.50 or so, that'll be a good early signal. Break below 52, and you're going to see another leg down on this little descending triangle that's starting to form. So a lot of these in the next 2 days or so will really have to show their hand here. EOS. EOS is a little unique just because there's some news and, you know, the project, you know, they'll go live and all that. That's really kind of driving this. So any positive news, positive changes come out of that, that's going to drive the price. And so this one's a little bit more unique, but strictly looking at the chart, it's looking pretty good here on this setup. Sitting tight, but also making higher highs, looking like a little bit of an ascending triangle on this 4-hour chart that it looks like it might just now be breaking out. So let's go to the 1 hour on that guy. Yeah, that's some pretty good volume on that move just above. So and that's a nice little breakout of this ascending triangle on EOS USD. And so that one's not too bad. How's it look on BTC? Right, right at resistance here. So, but USD is not bad. You can see EOS just kind of living within this zone here. There's a little bit of a range, but see, this looks like it's trying to head out. NEO BTC pair. Let's take a look at that one real quick. Yeah, it's confirming the USD pair. It's kind of rolling over, not showing a lot of relative strength versus BTC here, unfortunately. The level that I'd be watching here, this just doesn't look very strong. And you can see the trend is still lower highs along the way. And the key support is going to be right here. It's testing it again. And so ideally, what we'd want to see on NEO is this pattern to play out where we had this lower low. And this could have been a higher low, not really playing out. So now you're wanting for a higher low on this leg right now. But in the near term, I'm not trading NEO just because it's not trending in the direction that I want it to be. So I'm not going long here. I'm going to wait till I see some more confirmation to the upside. There's just other names that are stronger. There are not very many names out there that are stronger, but there's a few that are out there. IOTA. I was talking about IOTA a couple videos ago. I had that huge rally off the lows and looked like it had topped, and I said we're probably going to see some more downside, at least some consolidation. And so far, we're making that downside move. We're still making a series of lower highs, lower lows, and so until that pattern turns, I'm not doing anything with IOTA. It looks like it's still consolidating and retracing from that entire move it had. Going to the fib level on this guy, let's see what that lines up to. If we do just that, let me go peak to peak on that. 618 is right there. It looks like it's touched it, but we might settle in and around there. So still pulling in a little bit. Let's see here. The NEO ramen pair, please. All right. Going through some of these here. Nipple. So we did Cardano. Oh, Lumens was all right too. Let me look at Lumens. Look at Lumens dollars when I wanted to show you guys. So not too bad. I mean, not as strong as, say, the Ripple chart, but still trending, making a series of higher lows. And so until this pattern breaks, I mean, that's got to go with that. So these dips into there are ideal. So you can see this one here. It's dipping right into support. That's what I look for there. If it holds and wants to start taking out this downtrend resistance, a lot of times that's what I look for in the shorter term time frames to take my trade signals. But not too bad here. So Lumens is actually looking pretty good. On the upside here, what's this look like? If it breaks out here, relatively small move. I mean, even to this most recent high, that's only 2%. Above here, you're only talking 3%. So not a huge trade by any means. Not what we crypto people are used to. You stock market traders might be excited about 2%, but we're not. All right, VeChain. Yes, we did VeChain, guys. Omisego. Well, let's look at OMG two ways. Dollar. Nice little flag showing up there on this 1 hour chart. Hey, that's pretty good. Holding above that breakout point. Not too bad right there. See that? So you had this this pattern here. You can say that's probably on the 1 hour. A good case to be made for inverted head and shoulders there with a solid breakout on volume coming right back to the breakout point. Normal throwback. How's that look on the 4 hour charts? A little choppy looking on the 4 hour chart. A little irregular there, but in the short run, not bad. The good thing here is the volume, right? The volume there, and it's pulling right back to the breakout point, which is also this shorter term exponential moving average on the 4 hours. So might not be a bad secondary entry on OMG. I'm going to make a note of that guy. All right. Yeah, a bit on the BTC pair. Very similar action on the BTC pair. Very strong breakout on that 4 hour, putting a little bit of a bull flag there, pausing, setting up here, holding resistance or holding support right above resistance. All in all, looks good. So yeah, OMG looks pretty good here in the short run. Not too shabby. All right. 0x. You know, 0x was on my list here. Actually, let me pull up my other list so I can check out a few more names there. But what I've been watching is more the daily chart on 0x, just kind of the bigger picture. You can see I already got the lines drawn here, but it's really getting symmetrical, really consolidating here. But in the near run, it's living within this sideways channel. So very much range bound, but this, you know, the moves up and down are getting pretty tight. And so this is really the level to be watching. If we can break above this, that's going to clear both this most recent downtrend on the daily as well as the upper end of this channel that it's been in. If you wanted to make a tighter signal, you could say the closing basis, which is right around this level, and on the lower end, let me do this here. On the lower end, I'm going to mess it up if I do that. On the lower end, right, that'd be kind of your early exit signal, but not too much difference in the bottom there. So, but yeah, 0x is looking pretty good. Of course, on any break above these zones, I always want to see some pretty strong volume come in. Similar to what we just saw in OMG, right? That's the kind of move that shows a little bit more conviction when you see well above average volume on a break above resistance. That just shows a lot of conviction. And then when you see the pullback happen on lower and lower volume, that's just textbook, right? Does it guarantee that it goes higher after that? Absolutely not. But it's a probability game, remember. And when you see signals that generally precede some more upward movement, that's what you look for. And this is a textbook example of one. So looking pretty good. Nano. Oh man, let's take a look at Nano. That guy's been really pulling back for some time. Nano. I'm going to go to the daily chart on Nano first just to see the broader trend. And yeah, there's a good case to be made that, hey, maybe it's finally finding a bottom here. Multiple touches to that point, you can see here, and then some volume coming in on these most recent wicks there, a couple double hammer patterns on that candle. Now we're moving higher, breaking above the shorter term moving average on that daily chart. So not too bad here. If you like Nano, you know, down to the lower support line is about 10%. And in the big scheme of things, right, if this is going to work out, at minimum, you're looking at a test of resistance here, which is, you know, 25 to 30% upside. So that's, you know, that's favorable odds, right? The 10 to a 3 to 1 ratio there. So, but the problem with these is this is a counter trend trade, meaning you're banking on a counter trend trade and that's it, right? There's going to be a ton of overhead resistance along the way for anybody who is holding during this thing and they're looking for a bounce out. Now, the good news is the first key Fibonacci retracement level lines up pretty well with resistance. So might not make for a bad trade. I'd be getting defensive going into this mark here below the actual resistance level, just because on a counter trend trade, those are higher risk, right? They're the complete opposite of like trading this, right? There's no overhead resistance here. Momentum's to your back. People are starting to FOMO in, and it just goes higher and higher, right? Versus something that's bouncing off the lows. They're just not as strong. So my preference, and of course in this market it's tough to find these, but my preference is always to find these type of patterns. Hold on, guys. I'm gonna take a swig of some coffee there. I'll just spilled a little bit. All right, so Nano. Thank you guys. Much love from India. Got a lot of people here today. Netherlands, India. But tomorrow BNB will crash. Yeah, that's the thing, right? When something's going so high, they can reverse pretty quickly there. I did Litecoin. Dash, Digibyte. Yeah, I'll do Digibyte. That one was on my watch list yesterday. Let's do Digibyte first, and then I'll do Dash. I'll do Digibyte on Polo. And so what I've been looking at on Digibyte is just a broader trend that's kind of been forming here on this daily, really liking this downtrend line, very similar to what I was watching on Ontology, and looking for a break above and kind of just starting to round the corner there. So either just slowly drifting higher or a strong move higher, retracement, and then a go. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for on Digibytes. It's looking pretty good here. It's actually held up relatively well following the April run. Most names retraced more than 50% of the April rally. This one has not, and you can see it's finding some pretty decent support around the top of this prior little base it had. So looking pretty interesting. Definitely going to make a decision on this one here in the next few days. So keep an eye on this one, see if it breaks below this most recent support or if we can break out. And this one could go either way, especially with the market being so shaky here, but not too bad here. Dash. See Dash BTC first. Man, Dash, let me take the volume off. Dash is below the April lows on a Bitcoin basis. I didn't even notice that. Broke below. Wow. Now that's a major break of support. You can see now bounces into that are going to be sold off, and that's exactly what you're seeing so far is these bounces into this resistance now are hitting some walls. So not looking very strong here on Dash. Let me go to a longer term time frame, see how it looks on the bigger picture. To Bitfinex here. No, not dollar. Well, we can do dollar. Dash dollar, still holding support on the Dash dollar right around 284, 285. So that's got to hold on a dollar basis. That's a must hold. Dash breaks below that. It's not going to be too good because that was a double test here. All right, let's see here. Monero. Yeah, those privacy coins, unfortunately, are taking a lot of heat right now, and there's just some headwinds. Speaking of privacy coins, I've noticed like the 51% attacks have been on some privacy coins lately, and it's like that's genius, right? If you can attack a coin, why not attack one that has some non-traceability built into it? Oh man, some wild times. So looking at Monero, didn't like the fact that it finally broke below this support line, this support zone that it was in. You can see up here was a little bit higher, started to edge lower, and now again, any rally attempts into that have been sold off. So it's got to turn the corner there and really recapture that mark there on the daily basis. On the 4-hour chart here, near term is just kind of a neutral pattern, right? Maybe it's bottomed out, building a little bit of a symmetrical pattern here at the lows, but I'm not seeing really any strong bullish signals either. In fact, there's still some distribution happening. You see these big wicks here on volume, right? That's selling. That's all selling pressure. So not looking too strong yet. Ooh, let's see here. Let me do a few more, guys. How long have I been going? Not quite the hour yet, so we got some time. Crypto Sniper. I don't know anything about Crypto Sniper, and I don't really care what people say, to be honest. It's like I do my own thing. Everybody has a different style, and everybody's subject to their own opinion. There's a lot of guys out there on YouTube that I don't agree with either. Hey, it is what it is. It's all good. Oh, let's see here. Knowles. Yeah, looking at Knowles. Let's check Knowles out. Looking at the Knowles, this one's actually been holding up very well. Kind of watching this big picture, kind of, you can say it's a cup and handle pattern. It's just massive. At the end of the day, I'm watching this little consolidation back here. But yeah, that's actually looking pretty good here. Still trying to break that downtrend that it's been in. Hasn't quite broken it yet, but still getting there. So I'm watching that kind of be the early signal there. It's starting to turn the corner. I'd like to see some volume come in. You can see it had a lot of volume back here, and that volume has really dried up now. And we know there's a lot of reasons why. There's the bots and the wash trading and all that stuff that happens, but Nonetheless, looking at the price action there, that's the level to be watching on the upside. If we can break above that, might be an early signal that it's going to start making some new highs. So again, one of the fewer names that's very close to the highs versus BTC. So that's good. Kind of scrolling through the let's see here. Stratus. Looking at Stratus, yeah, it's still within that broader wedge long term. And that reminds me of another chart, which we'll go look at right now. But this has a bearish bias to it, unfortunately. So, but it is getting pretty tight, pretty narrow here. But it's not looking very strong. And the thing with a lot of these platforms now, Stratus has the advantage of maybe being around longer than a lot of these other names, but there's just so much competition for this space, right? For the enterprise blockchain, for just blockchain platforms in general. And Stratus is C#. A lot of these other blockchains are coming out multi-language, multi-support. And so there's just going to be a lot of competition, a lot of headwinds. And as we know, the best tech doesn't always win. There's more to it. There's community, there's marketing, there's partnerships. There's just so much more that goes into it. So long term, who knows, right? I mean, they've got a good team, but and they had the kind of the early start, but price is not really reflecting that yet. And right now we had this big run, smaller, but it's just kind of in this no man's land right now. Is it tradable? Probably. If you see a little bit of a break, maybe you can get a little trade into this, but this pattern is coming to a head here pretty soon. All right, let's see here. Verge. You guys still holding Verge? Let me go Verge BTC on Binance. Let me see here. Man, not a pretty looking chart to say the least. It's still just drifting lower. Oh man. See, this was Pornhub day right there. Bam, the announcement rallied off, and then there was more hacking and attacks that came, and just oh man, not looking too good. And you guys know me, I was never a fan of Verge, even though I did miss out on a nice little run there. Just not a fan of Verge. It is what it is. Nav. Trying to still hold support here. You can see I've been watching this line here on the lows. A little bit of a support zone there. Still holding up. Not too bad, but it really needs to hold. Otherwise, if it breaks below, I mean, that's just a really tight pattern we're seeing. Let me take the volume off. That'll help show that. But you can see here, potential for a descending triangle, maybe kind of forming in the big picture. Interesting. Got to hold. It's got to hold. It's got to break. And this blue line's kind of obsolete now. So NAV. Again, the question is always, is the chart strong? Is the chart bullish? I mean, it's one thing to say, is it at the lows? Is it going to hold here? And hey, that may be good if you want to kind of take a long-term shot at it near key support. But from a trading perspective, I want the wind to my back. So I generally try not to do the bottom picking as much as I want to buy something that's already trending higher. All right, I'm going to do a few more, guys, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks for being here. We're right at the hour. Let me see, I got a few names on the list here. We'll do Tron, Power, Icon, Wanchain. Actually, Wanchain was one on my list. Again, one of the few that I was looking at potentially a bottom, but let me find the volume there. So looking at Wanchain. It was looking like it's trying to find a low here. See that big volume spike yesterday. So still watching this one. I want to see this one ultimately take out this little bit of a resistance zone right here. But it is attempting. It's attempting to finally put in a low. If you go to that daily chart, you can see the pattern here has finally stopped this downward motion. And now it's a little bit of an accumulation phase going on here in Wanchain. See the box right there. And yeah, you could argue that, hey, maybe that's a an inverted head and shoulder pattern, little messy looking, but definitely a case to be made for it. And so at the end of the day, the effect is the same, whether it's an inverted head and shoulder or not. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a resistance that really needs to confirm to the upside that the pattern has changed and we're trending higher. So yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on here. Tron. The downward slide continues for Tron. And this is coming up to a key support level again. So got to hold this. This is on the 12-hour charts. Looks the same on the daily here. Multiple times touching here. And this does not look good. Not one bit. Looks like a big double top to me. And we'll know if it breaks below this. And look at this. There's not a ton of support. There's 2 days that make up this window right below. So if it breaks, it could go pretty quickly at that point. So it's kind of at a must-hold level. For you Tron fans out there, you want to see Tron hold in and around this 730, 750 zone. But right now, it's looking double topish. Now, the one positive here is you got a lot more volume coming in on the upside and not a ton of volume on this most recent second high. So that's good. Generally, if it double tops, you see some big volume near the top. Didn't see that in this guy, so maybe it holds. And lastly, we'll do power. The power ledger. So going to the 4-hour chart, this is power BTC on Binance. It was showing some life here a few days ago. It was really trying. Just real interesting to see these wicks. I mean, just check that out. Wow. All these rally attempts are just sold into. I mean, these are some big wicks too. Those are 6% moves. So there's just a lot of selling pressure, 5% moves. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the resistance has become pretty clear. I mean, this little window here hasn't been able to close much above that. There was 2 days here, but that was a quick reversal, and hasn't been able to get much above that. And also just kind of channeling, like so many of these names just looking the same. You know, just kind of channeling here, just moving back and forth in this little bit of a range. Okay, I lied. One more. I said I was going to do Icon, and that was on my list. Icon BTC. Unfortunately, not looking too strong here. Has the potential to make it higher low and really turn the corner on this move, but until I see that, I'm just going to stay out of the way. You can see we had this here kind of rolling over. It needs to make a higher low and start moving higher again to really convince me that the low is in. But right now, it's just not looking too good, unfortunately. It was looking really nice coming off the lows here, and then this was kind of going into consensus, was setting up a nice little pattern, and then it just broke down and just hasn't shown a whole lot of strength since then. You can see on the 4-hour chart has that kind of rolling over look. Okay, guys. What am I holding behind besides BNB? Well, I'm always hesitant to say because, I mean, I could close out my trade like as soon as this stream is over, right? I mean, I'm trading short term right now. Let's just put it that way. The market is just in that market right now where things are fickle, and BTC is doing its thing. Now, I still think we're going to see a little bit more upside near term. So VeChain, ZIL, Binance, Ontology, maybe. It's kind of rolling over, but that's really it. And kind of looking at some BTC, or not BTC, some USDT pairs. So maybe Ripple. What were some of the other ones? Bitcoin Cash. But still holding a pretty healthy cash position as well. Not 100% in at this point. Just taking it easy. Taking the small gains where we can get them, and just letting the market do its thing. It's like I said, it's not a super strong trending market right now. Do I have some long-term holds? I do. Yeah, I do have some long-term holds. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Catch you guys on the next one. Take care.